Kipchaks, guardian of the Iltutmish kingdom. He often had the same dream from somewhere in his long-lost childhood. He heard his mother's quiet songs, her gentle hands, the lemony scent of grass. He no longer remembered its name. His mother's words were completely incomprehensible. There was also a long pillar in the middle of the house, as if supporting the firmament and reaching the brightest star. Legend of Iltutmish. Delhi. The Iron Pillar is one of its most mysterious sights. It used to stand in front of an ancient temple. It is said to be made from a meteorite. As recently as 15 years ago, people would strive to lean against the pillar. Supposedly, this would help to grant one's greatest desires. But, alas, it is no longer accessible to tourists. They say that this remarkable column was built 16 centuries ago. It is made of pure iron, but never rusts. When the Islamic temple was being built, the Hindu one was destroyed, but this pagan shrine remains standing in the courtyard of the medieval mosque. Another belief is that if you embrace this pillar, you begin to possess some special strength, even military prowess. There really is some kind of magic around this structure. The magical pillar and the mystery of power. How did the ancient legends affect his life, the life of a warrior and ruler? The prophecies did come true. He became a powerful sultan, whom even Genghis Khan did not defeat. How can a slave ascend to the throne? Throne.Iltutmish was a Kipchak by origin. How can one retain the throne? Most of the rulers of the Delhi Sultanate belonged to the Turkic dynasties. How does one remain human? The dynasty was formed by people of slave origins. From a slave to a king of kings, an indestructible pillar of power, the Mamluk dynasty on the Delhi throne and the Milky Way guides the route homeward. Kipchaks, guardian of the Iltutmish kingdom, reflections on history, our version. Chapter 1. The Throne of the Slaves. Today, authority over the world belongs to those who have the greatest power. The principle of hereditary succession has not faded away, but fate has revoked this tradition. Iltutmish ibn Yalam. The history of architecture is for the most part a history of vanity. A ruler named Alauddin also decided to build a minaret, which, according to his plan, was supposed to surpass the Qutub Minar, but the minaret was never completed. The main minaret of Delhi was never surpassed. The monument to the Mamluk dynasty was built on the order of former slaves. Aybek started the construction. Iltutmish finished it. Qutub Minar was created at that time by Iltutmish. He was the Sultan of Delhi. If architecture is a history of vanity, then the Chronicle of Power is a history of wars, intrigues, and palace coups. At the end of the 12th century, Sultan Muhammad Ghori decided to conquer India. This was not especially difficult, as the country was being torn apart by internecine wars, and the Sultan had remarkable military strength. The Gulyams, which were Mamluks or Turkic slaves. This was a common practice of the time, which many rulers made use of.
Чтобы усилиться за счет
This was done in order to strengthen military power at the expense of the Kipchaks, repel attacks from abroad, and reduce internal conflicts within society. Muhammad Ghori conquered India and was killed by mercenaries as he returned from the campaign. The Sultan had no sons. but he treated his Gilmans in a special way. Other monarchs may have one son or two sons. I have thousands of sons, my Turkic slaves, who will be the heirs of my dominion and will ensure that my name is kept in the Friday prayers throughout these lands. Muhammad Ghori. And so it came to pass. The former slaves of the Sultan divided his empire in four. The north of India went to Aibek. In 1206, he declared Delhi as his residence. Turkic Gilmans and their offspring reigned for around 100 years. Aibek ruled for 4 years. He died mysteriously, breaking his neck while playing polo. He too had no sons, but there were daughters, and one of them was the beautiful and educated Turkan Khatun. She became the wife of Iltutmish. Most researchers nevertheless agree that the majority of the rulers of the Delhi Sultanate belonged to the Turkic dynasties. It is said that Aibek bought Iltutmish at the market in Delhi for a large amount of money. It was a bargain. 2 slaves for 100,000 silver coins. Moreover, they were not bought quickly, as the seller did not wish to lower their price. So the young man became the slave of a slave, and then his devoted friend. Tellingly, he received freedom before his master. Iltutmish distinguished himself by suppressing another uprising, and the ruler Muhammad Ghori granted him his freedom. Like many Gilmans, the young man received a good education. They not only raised slaves, but a kind of elite. They had to be capable of military service and of becoming rulers. His title was Lord of the Doe. Iltutmish led the hunt. At that time, it was a position of status. Falconry was one of the most popular types of hunting in India. He would surely have been familiar with it since childhood. What is the heaviest prey that this golden eagle could bring me? The largest prey is ungulates, small ungulates, gazelles, saigas, and roe deer. The activity is, of course, exciting, but whilst enjoying themselves, the ruler must remain safe, especially if the game is, for example, a tiger or a leopard, the main point being that the predator does not become the prey. If a leopard began to hunt people, this was called the spotted death in those days. Such a leopard would kill dozens and even hundreds of people. A hunter must have organizational skills, swift reactions, and an agile mind. And it is no coincidence that Iltutmish was also in charge of the Sultan's bodyguards and his security. After Aibek's death, the Turkic aristocracy attempted to place his adopted son, Aram Shah, on the throne. He even ruled for around a year. Qutb al-Din Aibek had a successor who lived a very short life. After him, Iltutmish became the ruler of the Delhi Sultanate, having killed Qutb al-Din Aibek's son. According to the chronicle, Aram Shah was tortured, either killed during the battle or executed as a prisoner of war. So the reign of Iltutmish began. It went down in history as the enlightened age of the Delhi Sultanate. Where did Iltutmish come from? What tribe did he belong to? And how did he come to be in India? Chapter 2. A Promising Slave. The dramatic landscapes of Mangistau. However, this area looked a little different 9 centuries ago. It is known that in the Middle Ages, the lands of Mangistau were located on the Great Silk Road. And by this very route, slaves were transported to many countries of the world. They were always an expensive commodity. Perhaps, somewhere here, the future Sultan of India was captured. He came from the Olbelik clan, which belonged to the eastern Kipchaks. The noble Olbelik clan, otherwise referred to as El Buri, were a nomadic people in the 12th century roaming the landscapes of Mangistau as well as the lower Volga and Ural regions.
Великие кипчакские ханы, верховные ханы, глук кипчакские ханы.
The great and supreme Kipchak Khans came from the dynastic class of El Bura, which is a wolf tribe that ruled on the territory of Dynasty of Kipchak.
Правила на территории Dynasty Kipchak.
A Turkic adolescent, especially one from a wolf tribe, would bring good money if sold. According to legend, this is how it came about. Iltutmish was strong, intelligent and attractive, and most importantly, he was loved by his father and, allegedly, had been chosen to be his successor. The older brothers were jealous. A medieval fate, the late 12th century, a boy of about 7, together with his older brothers, is selling horses. Horses from the Kipchak steppe were also highly valued. And then, through deception or by an order, he hears, "Go with this person," and that's it, you've become a slave. Another version of events states that by the end of the 12th century, the Kipchak-Khwarezm confrontation ended with a decisive victory for Khwarezm. Allegedly, Iltutmish's relatives were killed and he was captured and resold as a profitable asset several times. The income of the Mamluks was greatly supplemented by Turkic slaves. They possessed the skills of military leaders because every active nomad had to possess such skills, and they were very much in demand. There is an indirect confirmation of this version of events. The troops of Genghis Khan defeated the army of Khwarezm Shah and pursued his son to the Indus River. Jalal ad-Din managed to escape and asked Iltutmish for help. The Sultan refused. Some researchers believe that this was due to the long-standing hatred of the Khwarezm rulers and the slave traders. Jalal ad-Din turned to Shams ad-Din asking for help to regain his lost possessions. The Sultan, having sent gifts to the fugitive prince, conveyed through his messengers that the climate of these places does not suit a highborn prince. Soon, Iltutmish marched with a large army against the heir to the Khwarezm Shah, who was forced to retreat. Lev Gumilov, Delhi Sultanate in the 13th century. The Kipchak Iltutmish knew that Kipchaks were one of the principal enemies of Genghis Khan, and one of their main objectives was the destruction of the Khan's tribe El Buri, so that there would be only one power in Dynasty Kipchak. But the Delhi Sultan went to war against the Khwarezmian Jalal ad-Din and confirmed something resembling a temporary alliance with Genghis Khan. Iltutmish was able to do this in order to stop the Mongol troops who were trying to advance into the territory of North India. The Shaker of the Universe was on his way to Mongolia and was interested in whether it was possible to pass through India. It seems that Iltutmish agreed. Genghis Khan ultimately decided against this, but perhaps he also asked the Sultan to not help Jalal ad-Din. During the life of the Delhi ruler, no major conflicts with the Mongols were recorded. What kind of a ruler was the Kipchak slave? Why were lions housed at the palace? And how did Genghis Khan come to his aid? Chapter 3. The Lord of Fate. The boy Iltutmish was a slave to an evil master in Bukhara. He sent him to the market for grapes, but the money was stolen from the boy. He walked and cried as beatings and curses awaited him. A dervish saw him, bought him some grapes and said, "You will be a ruler," and gather together all the hermits and holy people, as though part of a single bunch of grapes. The legend of Iltutmish. Having become a ruler, he was protective of holy men and hermits. Allegedly, he even built a minaret in honor of one of them. Kutbuddin Baktiakaki was a spiritual mentor for the Sultan. He was a native of the city of Osh. It is said that the mentor knew how to reason with the temper of Iltutmish, which was sometimes very fiery. In general, the Sultan liked to debate with his pundits, but ignored their advice on how to govern the state. Iltutmish means keeper of the kingdom. Shams Dunya ad-Din means the son of peace and faith. His other titles include King of the Kings of the Arabs and Persians and the Ruler of the Turkic people. This is the grave of Iltutmish. He ruled from 1211 to 1236. The Sultan himself had begun to build the mausoleum, and his daughter Razia, the first female ruler of India, completed the construction. For a quarter of a century, the former slave ruled confidently and wisely, showing both diplomacy and discipline. He subdued those that he could subdue and made pacts with those that he could not. There were many that sought to overthrow him. Some tried to assassinate him, while others planned conspiracies. But Genghis Khan came to his aid. The fear generated by the bloodshed of Genghis Khan forced the emirs to rally around the throne of Iltutmish. The bulk of his support came from the Turks of the Elburi, Kipchak and Karakatai tribes. His confidants grew rapidly in number due to the increased migration from Central Asia, Iran and Afghanistan as a result of the Mongol invasion. Lev Gumilov, Delhi Sultanate in the 13th century. In just 2 years, 30,000 Turks, persecuted by the Mongols, came to India during a time of war. Medieval historians called them people of the sword. A significant number of Kipchaks greatly strengthened the Mamluks because the Mamluks, like the Turkish Ghilmans in India, had serious limitations. They were critically dependent on the import of military power. They always needed to get some kind of reinforcement from the steppe, because they could not rely on the local population. Educated refugees decided to go to Delhi after they learned that there was a patron there that supported scientists and poets. The Sultan welcomed everyone and provided patronage. During his reign and at his request, numerous works were translated and books and poems were written. They usually bore a dedication to Iltutmish. It is said that Al-Juzjani wrote a qasid in honor of the Sultan. He was reading it when suddenly the Sultan was distracted by state affairs and left. The poet was upset. But when Iltutmish returned, he recited the first lines of the poem and asked him to repeat the rest. The legend of Iltutmish. As Genghis Khan destroyed cities glorified by science, such as Otrar, Samarkand, Bukhara, artists and musicians, philosophers and architects found a new homeland and new positions in India. For example, Al-Juzjani was the supreme Qadi and wrote works on history. This is how Delhi became the cultural capital of the East.
It was one single empire under these people who brought a new way of economy, a new management style, a new way of organizing people.
With a firm hand, he brought order to the Sultanate. He ordered his subjects to wear clothes of different colors, apparently in order to understand what their trade was, an artisan, a merchant, or a peasant. He was respected and feared. He administered justice severely and punished regardless of rank. If he suspected a threat to his power, punishment was swift and harsh. This was the era when a powerful dynasty was being created, and its foundation had to be consolidated. Violating the palace etiquette, the Sultan rode out on horseback to the streets of the city to listen to the complaints of the dissatisfied. He requested that those who were especially suffering put on red clothes so that the petitioner could be seen from afar. 2 marble lions were installed at the gate of the palace. Bells were hung around their necks, and the plaintiffs could summon the ruler even after dark. Iltutmish is known for his intelligence and sound judgment. His fame spread throughout India and all countries and lands, and many stories and legends are told about his campaigns and victories. Ata Melik Juvaini, The History of the Conquest of the World. He reformed the army, repeatedly and successfully fought with neighbors, including former comrades in arms such as the slaves of Sultan Ghori. He significantly expanded the boundaries of his kingdom and divided the empire into regions. Some of the land was given to his subordinates as an incentive instead of a salary. Economic growth occurred in every land conquered by the Kipchaks. They made huge contributions to the development of culture. The Sultan also built palaces, reservoirs, mosques, madrasas, and ensured that wealthy subjects contributed to charity, both through his personal example and according to the law.
When a lot of Indians converted to Islam, it was not only because Islam was a great religion, but it was because of Kipchak value system, which helped as a process to make it more attractive.
As a rule, the Hindus would burn their dead or cast them into a river. It is believed that the first mausoleum in Delhi was erected by Iltutmish. Here is traditional Muslim architecture with local flavor. There are Arabic scripts and classical Indian ornamentation on the stones of this mosque, which the Sultan was also constructing. It is understood that some Turkic rulers destroyed ancient temples and, at times, swept entire cities from the face of the earth if they refused to accept Islam. Why was the pagan shrine not destroyed? What is the meaning of the Kipchaks' Tamga? And how does one trail the Milky Way? Epilogue: Reaching the Star. The nomads, deprived of the opportunity to live in one place and use the same sacred tree, were forced to cut it down and, having cleaned it of the branches, carry it with them. Arriving at a new place, they set up a pillar, a copy of the heavenly tree, Dashinima Dugarov, the historical roots of white shamanism. Such is the usual structure of the yurt. For a nomad, it was the model of the universe, the firmament, and this is the axis of the world which supports it and reaches out to the North Star. This is the starting point, the polar star, or this iron stake, the so-called Temir Kazik. Why did Iltutmish leave a column in the courtyard of a Muslim mosque? Did he see an omen in this? Or perhaps these were the echoes of the customs of the nomads, or else they were simply unable to remove it. One cannot believe the story that he destroyed the Hindu temples. He would certainly have demolished this pillar. It wouldn't have been seen, and we wouldn't have known where it was. It would have to have been walled up within the Qutb Minar. But it was not walled up. Iltutmish finished building the minaret, making it very high. It is not easy for a muezzin to rise to a height of more than 70 meters, but the construction seems to be reaching for the stars. He created his monument and left that old minaret inside. The Tamga of the Kipchak, comprising 2 lines, 2 knives, or 2 pillars, is a symbol of the tree of life that stands on the banks of the White River. In a sense, it is the Milky Way, and iron is a sacred metal amongst nomads. They say that the pillar was previously crowned with the image of a sacred bird, and this also resembles a Turkic legend. Our Bayturek symbolizes this eternal life, a nest, a tree, and a trunk. Trailing the Milky Way in the hopes for eternal life, the road home. Iltutmish fell ill during a military campaign, and his earthly days ended in April 1236, at the age of about 60. He bequeathed the throne to his daughter, which was an extraordinary move, but his eldest son, his hope and support, had died tragically a few years earlier. The other sons were not suitable for the role of ruler. All his children received an excellent education and were talented in various scientists. But none of his offspring came close to matching Iltutmish's ability to govern. The former slave of the former slave was the keeper of a great kingdom.